tower, 4 Charlie Papa, holding short, 17 left at Gulf, ready for takeoff.
Southwest 4241, runway 17 right, line up and wait, traffic 5 mile finals, Skyline.
Line up and wait, 17 right, Southwest 4241.
Cessna 904, Charlie Papa, Austin Tower, runway 17 left at Gulf. Cleared for takeoff, turn left heading 130.
Clear for takeoff for 17 left, heading 130 for Charlie Papa. And then sometimes you kind of wonder, like, do you have everything?
Southwest 4098, turn left.
Okay, that looks clear.
Okay, Southwest 4098.
Gonna try and maintain our on-center line, so everything looks clear out there. Yeah, it looks like they're doing some construction.
Southwest 4241, flight
So we are on that.
17 right, cleared for takeoff.
And we can go ahead.
Right, Southwest 4241.
Okay, so we will go ahead and put the RPM up here, up to in green. Everything looks green, so we'll do full power.
Southwest 1986, off the tower, you ready to go?
And we are at rotate speed.
Southwest 1986, traffic 3 mile final is a
So we got
to fly heading 170, runway 17 right, cleared for takeoff.
170 heading, clear for takeoff, 17 right.
And you said 130.
Skyline 99er Charlie, traffic is a Shamu 737 departing the runway 17 right, cleared to 2 land, caution wake turbulence.
Okay.
LFC 1,
We are airborne.
1 approaching the runway.
Also departure for Charlie Papa, request new VFR flight level at 5,500.
At 4 Charlie Papa, 4,500 is approved.
4,500 for Charlie Papa.
I'm sorry, did you ask for 4,500?
Roger, I asked for 5,500.
Star 4 Charlie Papa, for now flight heading is 090 and approved as requested.
Approved to 5,500, 090 for Charlie Papa. So he told us to go back to this other altitude. Wow, that's a really cool cloud. Like, it's kind of like we're flying under a tunnel of clouds, almost. Although,
12 Juliet, descend and maintain 6.
So we are at 4,800. We're going to go ahead and full power this thing to 5,500. Because the one thing I do recall from my instructor is that you want to always, so like, at first, you know, it's east is not even, and west is even. And at first, I thought it was east even, so then I made the correlation of, well, E equals E, and then I was like, wow, that's really simple. But then, you know, I had to like reverse that and decide that, oh, well, you know, now it's the opposite if I'm going to go east. But nonetheless, and I know that there's a like there's a restriction in terms of how far you're supposed to go to clouds. If anybody wants to kind of comment and kind of let me know, I think it's what, like 1,000 or 500 feet away from an active cloud.
Cessna 0 Papa Sierra, be advised, numerous VFR aircraft between you and Georgetown, try to keep you advised.
What was that? It felt like a light. Was it light on? Interesting. Okay, well, all the instruments are still green. Everything is still cool.
Turn left, direct I-Lexi.
And we are on GPS approach. Okay, so we are now at 4,500. So we'll do a little bit more. Oh yeah, and I remember, like, when I asked him 5,500 before, he said approve 4,500, but even he knows, like, that's not at correct altitude. And then I don't know what I was doing, because I just said, roger that, 4,500, like, I didn't even respond, you know? And so I think that there's also this kind of, this thing in relation to talking to ATC, where we kind of feel like they're the all-knowing God of we need to listen to everything that they know, but then at the same time, you know, as the PIC, the pilot in command, it's ultimately your own responsibility to make sure that you're doing everything correctly, and you can't always expect them to be there with you. So in this case, it's kind of, we're still at our 090, even though it's off our actual altitude, but, you know, nonetheless, because there's a cloud on the left, I think we're going to just try and, oh, that is a really cool, but you know what, I'm not going to take, oh my god, it's a really cool path. No, I'm going to stick here, and I'll request a direct to after I pass these clouds. And now we are at 5,200, and everything else looks good for the most part. So we're 60 nautical miles out from College Station, and I'm going to try and make this and as exciting as I possibly can for you guys. But okay. The other thing I have is I have this really interesting Stratus. And and of course, I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. I was just lucky enough and kind of stupid at the same time because I probably don't fly enough to honestly justify the cost of the Stratus. Because it's like $1,000 bucks, and I know that there's other types of ADS-B equipment out there, and they're cheaper. But you know, I kind of figured one lesson I've learned, and in my long many years of buying things, as many things as I have, is that it's always better in the long run. You end up saving more money when you buy a higher quality piece of equipment. It's something that
Papa Sierra, traffic 12 o'clock and 6 miles of maneuvering just north of the Taylor Airport, altitude 2,900, type unknown.
Not sure if it's... Okay, that was me, okay. Yeah, sometimes, of course, you don't know if they're talking to you or not. So, wow, these are all clouds. We should have stuck with that, actually. Well, my ForeFlight app closed. I was talking about Stratus, we will talk about in a sec, but my current priority is, of course, to get back on track and to try and avoid all these clouds that happen to be in the way right now. But, you know what, I think... So we are at 5,300. I am pretty positive that we can just keep on going over to the right because I see on a little map here, which I mean I could be paying attention to this, but you know I'm gonna have to update that. That's gonna give a correct bearing there. So we're gonna just go to the right of these clouds because I see an opening over there, and we'll see if that is any good. So otherwise, we set our that. I mean, I'm talking about the altimeter, of course, and then heading is correct because of course multiple times you do want to make sure and you know check that is relation to your heading and whatnot. I know this is kind of all obvious stuff that many pilots are already aware of, but I'm still new at this, so I like to kind of recheck everything.
Takeoff to approach, altimeter 3004.
So now we are at 5,500. Okay, we're finally at cruising speed. That took a very long time. So now we'll go ahead and reduce power here. I remember my instructor always saying, like, you don't really want to go below 2,100 RPM.
904 Charlie Papa, contact Houston approach on 134.3.
Contact Houston approach at 134.3 for Charlie Papa. And 134.3. And I was about to do that actually. But so whenever we're asked to contact, say, Houston approach, so I'm gonna have to look in here and we're gonna have to open up Easterwood Tower. Then we're gonna get the weather, which they don't tell you, so you actually have to go into weather 126.85. 85, okay, we'll switch that in. And not really.
Eastwood Airport information, Victor 16530.
Victor. Okay, so I don't know if that's right, but I like to contact approach and tell them that I have Victor, and then kind of go back to it. So we are at their
520 Charlie here, Roger.
Houston approach, Skyhawk 904 Charlie Papa, with you heading 070 at 5,300 with Victor.
904 Charlie Papa, Houston approach, Roger, expect runway 16.
Expect 16 for Charlie Papa.
Okay, so now we have our expected runway of 16. So just put R16 there. So we are still kind of, you know, still a little off course. So otherwise we are at our cruising altitude. No, actually we dropped a little bit. We dropped.
520 Charlie, just contact Austin approach.
But we can go ahead and increase the power here a little bit. Not too much because, you know, we only need to go up, say, 200 feet. So we'll just regain that momentum. And of course another method is just to not even really increase the throttle and just kind of do a pitch up immediately, because that way if you only need to make those small corrections, then it's easier than having to increase the throttle and then try and lose additional airspeed that you had. So we're going to go ahead and trim out. Wow, the RPM is really, it's moving a lot. Like, I'm not sure what's going on here, but it's just like shaking. That is really weird. Okay, now it's better. So we'll just maintain that. That is a really weird thing. I've never seen the RPM gauge shake like that. So we'll begin our turn to the left here, and we'll be able to trim this out. And so obviously when you trim, you're looking for just that small little drop in the RPM gauge. And there we had it. So we'll go ahead and trim that back in and just kind of rotate it back right. And I know another method is to look at the EGT, which is the exhaust gauge something. but I have not been trained on exactly how to use that. I've only seen it in another tutorial that is another method of determining, how to lean the mixture instead of just looking at, for a drop in RPM. But I don't necessarily know the answer to that. So again, if anybody wants to help provide that, I might appreciate that. So otherwise, we're kind of gaining a little bit of speed. We are 50 miles out now. So we're kind of going back on our direct to GPS line, and that should be helpful. So we'll go ahead and try and lean this out a little bit more, just to throttle. We're at like 2,300. And a funny thing I would always say, like I look at 2.0 on the RPM gauge, and I would say to like my instructor, like, okay, are we at 20,000, or okay, we're gonna go to 21,000, and then they would always have to correct me and say, no, it's 1,000. So I'm happy to report that I finally have that. I don't say 20,000 anymore. Which that would be a pretty, I'm sure there are planes out there that have, 20,000 RPM and whatnot. I don't know how fast they go, but I would assume they go quite fast if we're only cruising at, 2,300 RPM right now. And so we're definitely getting back on our track. And as I was talking about earlier, ForeFlight is a really awesome tool, and I'm sure anybody who's used it can honestly say that as well. Where my only complaint though is that I wish it could give you a direct to on the map. In terms of when it shows the plane, and then you see your waypoint of that kind of that purplish. I forgot the exact word for that. That purple line that indicates your direct to, right? But then at the same time, it's, oh wow, we're about to fly into some clouds, and we were not paying attention. See, that's the one thing that about multitasking. And so yeah, we're gonna jump ship to talking about multitasking for a sec. And it's largely been disproven that multitasking is something that you can efficiently do. It's just like we can only literally focus on one thing at a time. And yet when you're a pilot, you're trained to pretty much be a multitasker of having to look at a whole bunch of different things all at the same time, being able to scan all the instruments and know which is, how can I prioritize the instruments that I'm looking at right now and figure out what is the best order for me to actually look at these guys and figure out what's going on with the plane. And in a case for even flying a plane, you're supposed to really be able to multitask all these different things all at the same time. But at the same time, you're not really multitasking. You're just hopping from one thing to another thing really, really fast. That's all it is. And so if multitasking can be defined by you being able to look at all these 6 instruments in front of you and being able to see all of them at the same time, then that would be multitasking. But it's not really. It's just being trained to look at all these things in a sequential or linear order or back and forth, and being able to realize, what's going on with the plane. So I'm not sure what my actual point with that was. Just that you need to focus on one thing. It's not about saying that I'm going to look at all these things at the same time. It's about figuring out what is the most important instrument I need to look at this particular time. Is it my airspeed? Is it my altimeter? Or is it my heading? And being able to just kind of mentally remember where all these instruments are is going to help you from being able to look outside the window to being able to look at the instrument. But of course, as a VFR pilot, we're all trained that you should have your head out the window like 90% of the time, or what, 95%, and only looking at the instruments the other 5 or 10%. But honestly, I kind of find that really, really hard to do, because you have to know what your airspeed is. You have to know your altimeter, and we can also play with the autopilot right now, but I'm not going to. And then we can put in KGTU here so that we can also set up cool. So KGTU, and then we'll do back to KAUS. So the other thing I just recently learned with ForeFlight, really cool, was that on the maps page, we have the little menu. You can actually put in the multiple waypoints. And so obviously, if you're an IFR pilot, you already know this. But for a solo student right now that just learned this, it's kind of kind of cool that I realize I can put in these waypoints and it's going to automatically switch over. So now we're just about at our GPS waypoint here. So we're going to go ahead and make a very slight turn to the right. But then, as I was saying earlier about Stratos, it's kind of it just kind of sucks a little bit that it doesn't give you an actual direct to on the Stratos. Like, I actually have to go here to the GPS, click direct and enter, and then that's telling me my direct to is 064. And so I can certainly change this to 064 because right now we're going like 040, but we're making a very slight gradient to the right. Okay, so we are still kind of a little high, and we can reduce that. This, by the way, this is just regular water, and I have it's called Everly, EVERLY, and they're just little packets, like B vitamin packets, and so I just love to put that little B vitamin packet in here, and just kind of, you know, regardless of whether regardless of whether it's a placebo effect or whatnot, I just feel more energized. I like to assume that this is going to make me feel more alert, you know? So otherwise, the issue that we have in front of us is that we are at 5,700. Technically, we're only cleared for 5,500. So we can reduce this a little bit. And the problem, though, is that we have clouds in front of us at 5,500. So there are ways that we can rectify this, of course. We can try and increase the altitude, but we'd have to, as I recall it, since we can't go at 6,500, we'd have to request clearance to 7,500. And I don't know, that just seems a little bit excessive for, you know, being 38 miles out. I'm not sure. Maybe you guys can tell me what you would do in this scenario. So if you can see the clouds in front of me, which, I mean, hopefully we can sync up that video because I think my camera stopped recording for some odd reason here. Yeah, so we can either dodge the clouds, we can go lower, or I kind of see a small clearing to the right. Yeah, so instructor, if you're watching this video, please comment on what you would do if you had a herd of clouds in front of you and your VFR at 5,500. So I guess we'll just keep going straight, and you know, try and hope that we can see a clearing. And if we can't, then I will probably request a VFR at, say, 7,500, I would say. So, well, it's kind of crazy. It looks like we're just headed straight into a cloud. But that's beside the point. You know what sucks about these Cessnas is that there is no cigarette lighter. Like, you know, it's like what happens if your iPad dies, you know, and your GPS is not working? Then then you're screwed almost. So, like, it would be nice if they considered, but maybe they didn't have a cigarette. No, this is a plane from, I think, 2000 for Charlie Papa, so it's yeah, I think it's a 2001 plane or a 1999. Yeah, obviously they had cigarette lighters back then, but it is just kind of the inconvenience, you know, nonetheless, that they didn't put that in here. And that kind of brings me to you know, that the 172R, I forgot the exact details of it, but it was actually an upgraded version of the regular 172. In fact, they had like better noise insulation, and just overall it was a slightly more, as I actually sold it as a more luxurious plane than the regular 172. So I wonder, no, I don't think so. I think this is a 172R, nonetheless, you know, it doesn't feel luxurious, I must say. Like, I think
27 Alpha, contact Houston.
I think they just kind of were a little overzealous in terms of how they marketed it. I don't know how they marketed it specifically, but nonetheless, okay, so yeah, I think we can maintain our 5,000.
Number 553, Charlie, descend and maintain 2,000. Maintain 2,000.
You know, this is probably like what my fourth solo, I think. So I'm still in a process of learning, even though I'm trying to teach at the same time. Don't just as my little disclaimer, don't take anything I say, you know, for flying advice. Just research it yourself. But I like to provide ideas and just kind of explore everything. You know, I'm one of those people that looks at this and I'm like, I wonder what that is, or how this works, you know, because it's obviously by having a deeper understanding as far as how the plane works, is you really get just a better overall awareness. And I think definitely when you're flying, you really need that type of awareness.